Can you talk about spot and stalk tactics using terrain and thermals? For sure. Thermals are huge, and thermals are one of the biggest things you're going to encounter. If you live in a more flat area or less mountainous area, and you don't understand thermals, that's one of the other big things that you're going to need to understand before you go out there. I have a video of it and I wanted to include it in this webinar, but I could not find it quick enough. But I have a video of, I was sitting on this mountainside and I was watching probably 4 different groups of mule deer. They were all does. I think there was a couple little bucks in there, but it would have been hard to get down to them because of all the does that were there. And I watched this guy get up and start walking with the wind across this mountainside. And I kid you not, the mule deer were probably a good half a mile away from this guy when they scented him and got up and ran. They never saw him, and they were really far away from him from my point of view, but they smelled him instantly because he was walking with the wind and took off. And I watched the whole thing from another mountainside, and that guy walked that whole mountainside and never even knew those mule deer were there. So understanding thermals, always walking upwind is going to be key when you're starting to put on a stalk. So one of the first things I do, and if you're hunting Wyoming, it's going to be really tricky because the one thing about Wyoming is that no one is allowed to kill does on public lands. So there are tons of mule deer does all over Wyoming. And when you finally spot a buck that you want to go after, you need to sit there and find every other doe from you to that buck, because you'll spook doe that you never even knew were there, and it's going to eventually spook that buck. So that's one of the interesting challenges with Wyoming specifically. So understanding your path, what the wind direction is and how you're going to get there, looking at the terrain and what leaves you open and vulnerable versus, how you can sneak up there without that mule deer ever seeing you. So, for example, when you spot the mule deer and you begin your journey over to that mule deer to try and shoot it, that mule deer should essentially disappear from your sight until you get to the point that you want to get to try and make a shot or try and find him again. Because at any point where you could see the mule deer, it can see you. So finding those little nooks and crannies to walk yourself through to make sure that mule deer doesn't see you, while also making sure you never get upwind of him, are the 2 biggest things when you're about to put on that stalk. And if any of you have additional questions, definitely feel free to reach out. If you want to have more in-depth conversations on anything, things you're curious about, things that you think you need to work on, I could help you out with step-by-step plans to get you there. And if there's an interest in the other important stuff and getting detailed on that, we could definitely have a follow-up webinar. All right, another question. Thought about that tactic about staying out of sight for mule deer. Jared from Whitetail Journal always preaches to never lose a visual because on your time stalking, the deer can move. So yeah, I disagree with never lose a visual. So, the deer moving or disappearing, that happens. But what the most important thing is, rather than losing the visual on the deer, is finding concrete landmarks around where the deer is bedded or where it is, and and using that to re-find the animal once you get to the next location. So a lot of times when people go on a stalk, they get excited and rush it, and they get close, and then they can't find the thing. So that's a big issue because they don't have those landmarks. Another thing too is you can almost predict where the thing's gonna, like, remember which direction that the deer is facing when you leave it. So if it does happen to get up, sometimes they just get up and like basically stretch. They'll walk like 20 yards and then bed back down. So if they're likely going to move in the direction that they're facing, or they might move up or down. So it's not a terrible thing if you get to your next spot and they're not in the same exact location. Spend about 15-20 minutes to re-find it. That's happened to me before. I would rather that mule deer have no chance of seeing me as I get to the spot I want to get to, rather than and then having to re-find him or potentially losing him and finding him the next day, than keeping that visual and him having a higher chance of seeing me, because then he's going to spook and he's going to be gone. Spotting partner to flag you in is always a good idea if you have a partner to flag you in. Now you do have to watch the legalities of that. If you're doing it through texting or through radio or anything like that, it's illegal in some states. So some people use like hand signals or different color flags to signal, if the deer is moved, if you're close, or anything like that. So using a partner to flag you in is valuable, but you really have to watch how you go about doing it, because it's illegal to use certain technologies in some states. How often are you seeing deer get up and rebed based on shade changing? The deer don't want to be out in the sun, so a lot of times they know the areas to bed down that they're not gonna have to move that much. They know those little nooks and crannies and shady areas, but if a deer finds itself in the sun, it's likely not going to stay there long. As for how often I see them get up and rebed, I mean, I don't have a concrete number on that. It happens. I've seen deer get up. Some of them even get up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and feed a little bit, and then they go back. Oh yeah, north facing slopes. You could cut what you're looking at, not completely in half, but by focusing on those north facing slopes where the sun is going to hit the least is definitely a good idea. But shade in general as well. You'll see in Wyoming, if you get into that open country, how the terrain is. It's like if you take your hand and there's all these different fingers, and like that's how the elevation looks, like your hand like this. So it doesn't have to be a north facing slope. The mule deer will tuck themselves in right here, like below where my knuckles are, and they'll be shaded all day pretty much, no matter what direction they're facing. And it's really easy for them to hide like in these areas of the fingers. Any other questions? All right, guys. Well, I want to thank you for your time and listening to me. Like I said, reach out if you have any questions at all. I'd be happy to answer them or help you out or go in depth with anything that you guys need to work on or want more information about. I know this was pretty high level, and we didn't get into too many super detailed things, but focus on those 3 things first and get yourselves really good in all of those aspects around really understanding where your weaknesses are mentally, physically, and technically. And that's going to help you be successful on killing a mule deer more than any other aspect of it. You know, the first 3 times that I went mule deer hunting, you know, I didn't know, I really didn't know anything about tactics or spot and stalk tactics or anything like that in great detail. Even when I was 12 years old, I was given a map and compass and my rifle, and we went out and I covered miles and never gave up and hunted every possible minute. And I always ended up finding a mule deer and being able to shoot it. So if you guys can take away anything, you know, really focus on those 3 things, being confident. And, you know, it's easy to say that you can be out there and stay out there until you're actually in it, especially if something goes wrong or if you get nervous about something. It happens to everybody. But, you know, really digging deep in those 3 things will help you be successful. And I will definitely send you that gear list, Kyle. If you want to shoot me, I'll put my email in the messages here. And then reach me there, and then Facebook. There you go. That's all my contact stuff. So reach out with anything. Kyle, if you want to shoot me an email or message or whatever, I'll send that gear list to you, no problem. Or if you guys are server side members, hit me up on through server side as well.
So I always send out a follow-up email after webinars just to see how we can improve that kind of stuff. I'll make sure that I attach all Brian's contact information in that as well. It'll probably come out tomorrow or the next day. If you guys have any follow-up questions that you would like answered or one-on-one time, we're here to help. We want to make you more successful. That's our main goal. So 100%. With that being said, if you're not a service side member, we offer a membership. It's a $40 a year registration fee. You get this kind of stuff more regularly, and partnership discounts, the whole community, the whole deal. So just want to throw that little plug in for our hunt club and our community if you guys are interested in that as well. Brian, I really appreciate you putting this on. You've shared years worth of knowledge that you've built over the years. Yep. And I really appreciate everybody hopping on, willing to take their time out of their day to learn these tactics on hunting mule deer.
For sure. And and my background, yeah, those are the kind of fingers that I was talking about. So like I wonder if my mouse, can you see my mouse through this? Oh no, I stopped sharing my screen. Never mind. So if you look, let's see these, it's messing up, but you can see those like dark shaded crevices. I mean, that's where they're going to be hiding out. They're going to bed down in there and hide out, and they're really hard to find. So, but yeah, appreciate all your questions. They were all really good, and look forward to talking to you guys again.
And we'll put something on here in the future before the season gets kicking off on either e-scouting or potentially land nav. We'll have much more coming down the pipes. I'm going out to Brian's. We're going to do a whole module on shooting, long distance shooting, the whole deal. So keep eyes out for that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely e-scouting, and definitely we could do another one on the other important stuff slide that I showed, because that's important stuff too.
For sure. All right. Thanks again, fellas.